流されて俺今日もさすらい涙も浮かれるブルーゲイル涙払ってブルーゲイルきらめく力海を目指して翼を開く鋼の機体野心を乗せて風か嵐か青い線香颯のようにザブングルザブングル颯のようにザブングルザブングル
Hello and welcome back to another Plamo review. Today we're taking a look at the Moderoid Xabungle. And starting off as always with the articulation, the head is on a ball joint, which is pretty far back on the head, but you can get pretty much all the articulation you'd want out of the head there. The shoulders are on kind of a weird joint, but that's mostly for the transformation. There's a hinge here, and then a rotation, and then another hinge. Easy, full, all the way, 180 degrees up. And if you get the wing out of the way, there's nothing stopping from a full rotation. Then a bicep swivel, and a double jointed elbow for pretty much a full bend. And the hands, as always, are on a ball joint. Now there is an ab crunch, not crazy, but it is there, as well as a rotation at the waist. The front skirt are actually ball jointed on, though moving up more than this doesn't really matter because there's no fancy joint in here, it's just a universal joint for the leg itself. And it kind of bangs against the skirt a little bit. You can get about that far out to the front. And same to the back. About 45 degrees out to the side. Wouldn't be too hard to file that down actually, especially since it's covered by this. And since it's a universal joint, you do get a rotation at the thigh. Now there is a full double knee bend. And thankfully it's actually filled in here so it doesn't look too gappy when it's fully bent. The ankle's a little weird. This is on a ball joint down here, and there's another hinge on that ball joint that lets it move up out of the way if you really need it to. Not that it really matters. Then there's a front to back hinge and a ball joint down in the foot, which actually has a really nice tilt to either side and front and back. So you can get this in pretty much any pose from the show. The only real limitation is with the hips, and even then that's not that bad. Now, getting into accessories and gimmicks. There is no sticker sheet, but there is a little bit of color correction that you need to do. Nothing crazy, just the white on the cheeks of the head, that needs to be painted. These are a very slightly darker blue, and that needed to be painted. And it's not super noticeable, but it does make a pretty big difference, honestly, in my opinion, just on the level of depth the legs get. And also the darker blue and white trim on these toe vents. Aside from that, there's just a couple more things, and it's just the black in these exhausts, I guess, the blue trim on this cockpit, and the silver trim on this one, and the silver on the headlights. Everything else is color separated, and I think they did a good job. Now, before we get into anything else, I do want to point out there are some option parts. First of all, there's a blue triangle for this top wedge, and I don't know why. Both Xabungles in the show have red on both of those triangles, so I don't really know what that's for. It's probably one very specific shot or something, and I'm just forgetting. The more important one, though, is you get the full wings, but you also get the broken wings, which is really nice. I will say, I kind of feel like these should be longer. Like, it only just comes out to the very edge there, and I remember them being in the show more broken, like, up here, rather than right down here, but I like the fact they're included at all, to be honest. This wasn't necessary. They could have just been like, yeah, figure it out, break these off if you want another one. But no, they gave you easily swappable parts. And finally, you can actually do the funny thing that it does in the show, where if you push down on the little lever back here, it actually raises up the glass in the cockpit. And you can kinda... oh, that's gone out of focus. You can just barely see the little Elchian rag pilots in there. It also comes with Giron, but I already have him in my R3 Gallia, so I wanted to put the other two in his... Man, you really can't see them very well once this is put on, but I did paint them up properly. They are in there. The benefit of the Walker Gallia having clear windows instead of a green tint. You can kind of see them even behind it. It's not super obvious, but it is, you know, nice enough. And there are actually interiors on these ones too, but there's no space for a pilot or anything. There are actually a couple of other option parts, though it's not as much option parts as the ones we were talking about. If you go with the broken wings, or if you just want to go full armor with this, you do have to swap out the wheel and panels on the back of the arm, and these are just covers for that, so that it's not just an ugly gap there. You need to use at least the one on the left arm, or right arm, depending on what you choose. Because getting into the accessories, you do get the full armor, but this obviously isn't going to fit onto the arm if the wheel is there. This does have a movable handle as well as a movable scope, and you do get both left and right of all of the hands, including these ones, which are like old 90s toy square slot hands, which is funny. It's very specifically just for this too. You get two closed fists, which is nice, and those ones are required for the transformation, which is why I'm leaving them on for now. Aside from that, you do get both left and right trigger finger hands, which is for holding the main rifle, machine gun. I don't know where the ammo goes on this thing, but apparently it actually fires real ammo. I mean, these things are fueled by gasoline, so just whatever. It's a sci-fi spaghetti western. It doesn't need to make super sense there. I will say the hands, the trigger finger hands, are a great sculpt. They're made out of 4 pieces though, and I kind of feel like that wasn't necessary. It's a little over-designed. It does work fine though. Wrapping up the hands, you do get 2 beautiful splayed hands. These are 3 pieces. The thumb is a separate piece. You can kind of see the seam line there, but it doesn't really bother me. These are wonderfully dynamic display hands. They look really, really good in just about any pose you want to put them in. Genuinely some of the best open hand sculpt I've seen on a figure. And finally, you do get the big boys, shoulder guns, or rocket launchers. It's funny, the full armor for this literally just straps 3 different rocket launchers onto it. These ones just clip on to the little divot cutouts on the shoulders here, and you can only put them on one side because this one has the little cutout there for the circle on the chest. That reminds me of one other thing. Actually, there is one other option thing, and that's the forehead camera, the yellow one, and the chest circle. You do also get completely clear plastic for those, and they're just on their own runner, so I don't really know why they didn't just cast that in translucent yellow. I mean, I guess, if you want to, paint your own, you can paint it whatever color you want. Fair enough, guys, but if somebody's going to do that, they could probably just cast it in resin. Kind of feel like if you're just... you gotta get translucent yellow paint for that. I just went with the flat yellow anyway, because I think it looks better, but you have the option. Oh, and finally, you do get a stand adapter, which is something that kind of loosely cradles the crotch and has a 3mm hole. I feel like they probably could have made this attach a little bit stronger. I don't know. It kind of half tabs into that little hole there and grips onto the front and back. Aside from that, it's not a great connection, but at the same time, it's not going to just fall off. It's don't bump it too hard; it might fall off, kind of thing. Anyway, now that we have all of those accessories out of the way, let's go over the transformation, because that's actually pretty cool. This does fully transform with no parts forming as long as you have the closed fist on, which is a feat of engineering, frankly. This is insane how good this is. I mean, granted, the Walker Gallia doesn't require any parts forming either, but the transformation on that is basically just it pops in half. This actually has somewhat of a transformation, and it's really impressive what they did with it. Okay, first things first I want to do, just so that I don't forget anything else, pull out these tabs both on the arms and the legs. They flip opposite directions, and they are a freaking nightmare to get out. Come on. Like, I appreciate the fact that they made them flush and not too, like, noticeable, but at the same time, you guys probably could have made it a little bit easier to get these things out. It's like genuinely annoying to flip these out. Go. Right. Next thing you want to do is unclip this from the waist on both sides, and it pretty much just falls in half. Might as well do the front first anyway. Collapse the fists in. There's a little track for the wrist joint, and it just folds in there. You want to bring the arms up. Oh yeah, fold these in. And remove the section from the back. It's not parts forming, it's just they wanted to lock this in by doing it. You literally take it off and put it back as soon as you float. Slide the head down into the chest. That's literally all it is. They just did that so that it locks it in place. There we go. Yeah, you can see the holes here that hold the slider piece in. That's literally all that's for. It's just a locking tab, basically. Keep these out to the side for the time being. Just want to make sure I don't bend these. They do actually give you 2 spare if you do break them, but I want to avoid that if possible. Right. This way. Bring this down. Wait, no. You rotate the panel first, then you bring it down, and you flip this one around out to the front like that. Do the same over on this side. Pull these up. Make sure that clicks so that it's flush there. You'll feel a slight click, a soft one. Then you just bring these up and break the elbows backwards very slightly. Click those together. Sort of straighten this up. Hope to God that it doesn't break anything down here. The head always likes to go sideways very slightly on me for some reason. And you want to bring these up. Make sure that it's close enough to straight anyway. And just make sure this stays in. It doesn't click when it's back or anything, so you just kind of gotta bring these back down, rotate that around. And there you have the front half in its car mode. And I gotta say, you do have to make sure that this is completely straight, that all the 4 wheels are there. But this rolls stupidly well for what's effectively like a junker car looking thing. It rolls better than some like actual toy cars I've had when I was younger. It's ridiculously good, actually. Now, as for the back, you want to not pull those up yet. Actually, you want to get this piece out, and you want to pull up the little hatch, and straighten the legs out. Pull these up. Down, and you want to bring the leg, bring the legs together. Come on, those 2 tab in, good enough, and just slide in the thighs into the legs themselves. Looks like that. And you want to hook out this little tab right here, which is easier said than done, to be completely honest. It's such a small tab. Come on, out. Fold these pieces up around, covering it. I actually want to fold out these ones. Then you tab it together. There we go. And there you got the car with trailer mode. And of course both of these have their own individual plane modes because, hey, it's a super robot. It has to have a flight mode. This one's really simple. Literally just fold the wheels down to the bottom on the front and the back. And take these wings and fold them like that, and that's now the plane mode. I love Xabungle, but man, that's silly. This one's a little, well, actually it's even simpler, but it also looks a little bit better in my opinion. You want to get it apart, get the nail in there, pops it apart, fold that back in. Fold these ones back up underneath. Bring these back down to the sides. Keep these ones out. You want to fold out these little inner panels on the wings. Get these up. You can usually get your nail in. They have little tabs here to pull them up, but honestly it's easier to just hook it around the front. And you want to bring this down a little bit, get it out, wiggle it, get it up to the front, and flip out the front wheel. And there you have the two plane modes. Hopefully I'm able to cut that down in post a little bit so it's not quite so awkward, but it's a little bit fiddly to transform them, but honestly it's straightforward enough that I'm not really going to complain. I'm not worried about anything breaking when transforming it though, which is more than I can say for a lot of the transforming things I have on my shelf. If you haven't watched my Walker Gallia review or the 3-0 Galliant review where it broke, yeah, this thing's pretty sturdy. And as for a quick size comparison, Xabungle is 1/100 scale, meaning it's in scale with the Real Robot Revolution Gallia, and it is in scale. The pilot figures inside the head are very slightly smaller, but I think that's mostly just because the head's kind of cramped. The Xabungle itself is pretty much perfect. So, to wrap this review up, the Moderoid Xabungle is excellent. Color separation is pretty much perfect. Feels a little bit odd they didn't just pre-paint the parts that are, you know, a different blue or with the white, but that's minimal. Who cares, really? That's easy to paint anyway. The articulation is pretty much perfect. The transformation is perfect. The sculpt is excellent, and the fact that they sculpted it to match the R3 Gallia is brilliant. Thank you, Goodsmile, for that. Makes an amazing companion piece on my shelf. I'm glad I got this. The only real complaint I even have with the kit is that the joints are a little bit smooth for my taste. It's not even that they won't hold the pose, it's just that they're really glidey. If you're a Xabungle fan and you haven't already gotten your hands on this, do yourself a favor and get one. And if you don't know what Xabungle is and you just randomly came across this video, or you're subscribed but you haven't watched it, do so. It's absolutely worth it. And that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe and hit the bell to be alerted for future reviews. Come chill in the Discord. Follow me on Twitter, if that's even still around. And consider supporting me on Patreon so I can keep bringing you videos like this. And, as always, until next time, happy building.